The power of being present. Celebrating life isn't just a beautiful phrase, it's a way of waking up to the reality of our existence. It's about humbly and with great awe, recognizing that just being alive is an extraordinary gift. Breathing, seeing, and hearing are treasures that are often taken for granted, but when observed with conscious awareness, they are transformed into everyday miracles that surround us. To be able to share this journey with people who love us, to feel a hand that accompanies us, a look that understands, or a hug that sustains us, this too is a powerful reason for celebration, a profound connection that nourishes the soul. Even in the midst of deep pain, even on the darkest days, there is always a tiny spark, a reason, a dim light that serves as a reminder that life, despite everything, remains a miracle that deserves to be honored and cherished. Many people face illnesses, emotional crises, or episodes of anxiety that seem to have no way out, feeling trapped and without hope. Yet, it's not always medicine or cold logic that helps them move forward and find their way. Sometimes, the key difference lies in a profound inner change, a shift in perspective. It's about letting go of the question, what can I expect from life, and instead beginning to ask, what does life expect of me? When a person, even while immersed in pain, fear, or exhaustion, manages to focus their attention on what they do have instead of what they lack, something profound begins to shift within them. This conscious gaze becomes a soothing balm for their spirit. It doesn't erase the pain, but it softens the path and makes the journey more bearable. It doesn't eliminate anxiety, but it allows them to navigate it from a kinder, more balanced and peaceful place. The process of healing often begins right there, in that small act of profound gratitude and presence. A high vibration is much more than simply feeling good. It's a silent medicine that strengthens the body and calms the mind. When you cultivate it with kind thoughts, heartfelt gratitude, words that build up, and habits that nourish your soul, your entire body reflects it. Your energy flows freely, your immune system is activated, and constant exhaustion, emotional laziness, and anxiety without apparent reason begin to dissipate. An elevated energy protects you from the debilitating effects of stress, from discouragement, and from that internal disconnection that sometimes opens the door to physical symptoms or dense emotional states. Therefore, maintaining a high vibration is not something esoteric or mystical. It is a deep form of self-care, a conscious choice you make every day. You are choosing every single day between thoughts that elevate you and thoughts that turn you off. From which energy are you building your well-being today? Not knowing how to live is being disconnected from the most powerful moment that exists, the present. It is living with your mind trapped in a tomorrow that doesn't exist yet, or tied to a yesterday that you can no longer change, a past that holds you captive. And when that happens, not only does your peace slip away, but your health also gets lost. How many times do you eat without truly savoring the food? How many times do you walk without looking at the sky? How many times do you hug without truly being there in the moment? Your body feels this disconnection, and constant anxiety sets in, insomnia appears, and exhaustion accumulates. All of this is not a coincidence. It is the direct consequence of surrendering your power to fear and closing the door to the now. The renowned teacher Louise Hay taught that when you learn to inhabit the present, even the smallest things are transformed into powerful acts of healing. A positive thought, a deep breath, an affirmation repeated with love, all of these have the power to re-educate the mind and change your physical state. In this very instant, Louise would say, you are creating your future. With what kind of thoughts are you building it? Because even in the midst of difficult moments, the present always offers something valuable, an instant of calm, an opportunity to give thanks, a different choice. What moments are you missing out on because you are always waiting for something more? What if today were that very day you deserve to live with consciousness, calm and love? When you learn to live in the present, you also begin to look at death differently. It is no longer a threat that lurks in the shadows, but a natural part of the journey that gives every moment meaning and urgency. Because if life is a precious gift, its end also invites us to wake up, to leave nothing pending, to love with more presence, and to choose with more consciousness. Louise Hay spoke of death as a transition, not as a finality. She said that the soul simply changes its form, like a butterfly that leaves its cocoon behind to fly freely. And when a person has lived with authenticity, with love and with intention, death doesn't sting so much because there is not as much to regret. The fear of dying is often a reflection of a deeper fear, the fear of not having lived enough, of not having dared to be yourself, of not having expressed love when there was still time. That is why living in the present not only heals the body and mind, but also heals the soul. Because he who learns to be here, in the moment, also learns to let go with peace. And what if every day were an opportunity to live with such fullness that death could only greet us with gratitude? What if instead of fearing it, we learn to let it teach us how to live better? There is one truth that we cannot lose sight of: death is also a part of life. And although we often try to avoid it in conversation, its very presence invites us to look inward and ask ourselves if we are truly living the way we desire. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, a pioneer in the study of death and the grieving process, accompanied people in their last days for years. She listened to their most honest confessions, their deepest silences, and she discovered something she repeated many times. Most of them didn't regret what they had done, but what they never dared to do. They didn't regret having failed, but not having allowed themselves to live with more freedom. They didn't cry so much for what was lost, but for what was not lived, the hugs they didn't give, the words they kept silent, the dreams they postponed out of fear. This teaching, so human and so real, reminds us of something essential, that life is not made for accumulating things, but for feeling, for sharing, for taking risks, for living it fully, not halfway. This video is not meant to talk about death as something sad. It is not an homage to pain or an invitation to nostalgia. It is rather a luminous reminder life is happening now, and every passing second is a gift that will never be repeated. It's not about ignoring death, but about letting it awaken us, because when you understand that time is limited, you learn to live with more truth. You hug more tightly, you say, "I love you," without waiting for the perfect moment, and you appreciate the simple act of opening your eyes in the morning. Louise Hay used to say that every moment can be an opportunity to heal, to grow, to love more, and to fear less. And perhaps that is the true teaching of this message, that you don't have to have everything figured out to start enjoying life. Every instant is a possibility, every breath is a miracle, and every day can be the beginning of a life that is more present, more conscious, and more real. When you begin to see life as a path of growth, transformation, and love, the way you look at death also changes. It stops feeling like a threat and begins to be understood as a natural part of the journey. Louise taught that we are not just a body, we are also energy, consciousness, and soul. And when that understanding takes root within us, fear slowly dissolves because we sense that what we are doesn't end, it simply transforms. Death does not have to be experienced with anguish if during life you have loved, you have felt, you have forgiven, and you have lived with an awakened heart. The soul does not fear leaving when it has honored its passage through this world. Therefore, more than fearing death, the real challenge is not to postpone living, it is to choose today, right now, a more conscious, more present, and more loving way of being here. Because while you are still breathing, you can still heal, and while you can still love, you can still transform everything. Perhaps if we stopped seeing death as an end, and began to see it as one more step in the soul's journey, something inside us would calm down. Because when you open your heart to that possibility, that beyond this life there is another form of existence, more serene, more loving, fear begins to lose its grip. Perhaps death is not a loss but a rebirth, a return home, a transition to a place where there is no longer pain, no urgency, and no haste, only peace. And just imagining it, just allowing that idea to touch your heart, can alleviate the anguish that sometimes accompanies the thought of leaving. Life was made to be lived with love, not with fear, to flourish, not just to survive. And although pain is a part of the journey, so are joy, hope, and unexpected beginnings. Living with a positive outlook does not mean denying what hurts, but rather choosing to focus on what can still heal. It's about waking up every day with the decision to be grateful, to create something new, to start over, no matter how much yesterday might have hurt. Thoughts have immense power. Every word, every belief, every emotion you cultivate inside molds the reality on the outside. That is why it is so important to choose thoughts that elevate, words that build, and habits that nourish the soul. Louise taught that when we change the way we think, we begin to transform our lives, and that life always responds to what we offer from within. When you sow love, you reap peace. When you offer gratitude, life opens up more paths for you. And when you walk with faith, everything you need arrives in due time. Living with a positive focus is an act of courage. It is choosing the sun, even on cloudy days. It is trusting even when you can't yet see a way out, and it is loving even when your heart has had to heal. Emotions do not live only in the mind. They are imprinted on the body, in every cell, in every organ. And although their importance is often underestimated, the truth is that they have a direct impact on our health or disease. Unlike feelings, which are more lasting and mental, emotions are immediate bodily reactions. The body responds in a tangible way. Your breathing changes, your heart rate is altered, and your hormone levels are modified. For example, when a person is connected to love, care, and tenderness, whether through a hug, a sincere conversation, or a moment of deep connection, their body secretes oxytocin. This hormone strengthens the immune system, protects the heart, reduces inflammation, and neutralizes the effects of stress. But when a person lives in a state of constant anxiety, as is the case for those with generalized anxiety, their body begins to produce large amounts of cortisol, the stress hormone. And when cortisol remains elevated for days, weeks, or even years, the body begins to decompensate. Symptoms such as insomnia, chronic fatigue, hair loss, muscle aches, heavy digestion, constant allergies, or even autoimmune diseases appear. It is not imagination, it is emotional biology. Every thought generates a reaction, and if you feed your mind with worry, fear, or guilt, your body expresses it through discomfort. But Louise also said that healing begins with a new thought, that by changing the way you talk to yourself, look at yourself, and feel about yourself, you open the door to a new reality. Therefore, starting to take care of your emotions is not superficial. It is a deep form of medicine. Choosing kinder, more loving, and more compassionate thoughts can become the foundation for a true internal and physical transformation. And among all the emotions that have the greatest impact on health, fear holds a central place. Not the specific fear that protects and warns us of real danger, but that silent, constant fear that lives installed in the mind and becomes a way of life. When a person lives with a fear of getting sick, of not being enough, of being alone, of failing, or of not being in control of what is to come, their body enters a state of permanent alert, and that prolonged state of alert eventually exhausts the entire system. Cortisol levels rise, the digestive system is altered, sleep is interrupted, and the immune system begins to weaken. Little by little, the body wears down. This is how diseases that don't always have an apparent cause appear. Nervous colitis, hypothyroidism, outbreaks of dermatitis, chronic contractures, and inexplicable fatigue. And in many cases, what lies at the bottom is not just physical tiredness, but contained fear that was never heard or healed. Louise Hay repeatedly said that the body is a mirror of the mind, that when thought is full of tension, the body manifests it in the form of pain. But she also affirmed that if you manage to transform your internal dialogue, that one filled with judgments and demands, into a more compassionate one, the body responds with relief and healing. That's why it's so important to look fear in the face, not to surrender to it, but to recognize it, understand it, and let it go. Fear is not fought with force. It is dissolved with love, with new beliefs, with thoughts of trust, and with affirmations that nourish the mind and return peace to the body. And when we live as if there were infinite time, we fall unwittingly into the trap of postponing everything. We postpone forgiveness, we postpone hugs, we postpone joy, as if there were always a tomorrow available to resolve what is uncomfortable today, to love what hurts today, and to appreciate what is present today. But the truth is that every day is unrepeatable, and to postpone what is essential is, without realizing it, to let life pass by without fully inhabiting it. How many times do we postpone a conversation out of pride? How many times do we choose to keep a "I love you" silent while waiting for a perfect moment that may never come? Living with the consciousness that life has an end is not sad. It is profoundly transformative, because when you remember that this day is unique, you begin to value the simple things: a sincere conversation, a shared meal, a moment of calm. Louise Hay taught that every moment lived with presence is an act of love, that when we honor the now, we liberate the past and stop fearing the future, because true power is always in the present moment. And perhaps the greatest wisdom is this: not to wait to lose something to start valuing it, not to wait for pain to wake up, not to wait for the last day to start living. When you live with this awareness, that time is a sacred resource, your priorities also change. You no longer invest your energy in arguments that lead to nothing. You no longer seek to always be right, nor do you hold on to what weighs you down, nor do you beg for what doesn't flow naturally. A more silent but wiser type of love begins to be born, one that honors bonds from authenticity, not from dependence, one that knows when to stay, but also when to let go with peace. And the relationship with yourself also changes. A need to take care of your body, to feed your soul, and to surround yourself with beauty appears, not out of vanity, but out of respect. Because when you value life, you stop punishing yourself. Louise Hay spoke of living with intention, of not allowing life to escape from us on autopilot, as if the important things were always somewhere ahead. She said that when you learn to treat yourself with love, the whole world begins to reflect that same treatment. And so, living stops being a struggle and begins to feel like a sacred act. Maintaining a high vibration for as long as possible is not just a spiritual practice, it is a way to protect your body, mind, and soul. Because when your energy is low, everything becomes heavier, your thoughts become cloudy, your spirits fall, your body suffers, and without realizing it, you start to live in a state of survival, not of fullness. An elevated vibration does not mean being happy all the time. It means cultivating a stable, loving, and conscious energy that sustains you even in difficult moments. And this can be trained. For example, someone who lives with anxiety might start their day with a racing heart, a mind full of negative thoughts, and a constant feeling of threat. But if that person decides, before getting out of bed, to breathe deeply, place their hands on their chest, and mentally repeat, "I am safe, I am at peace, today I choose calm," something begins to change. Maybe the fear won't completely disappear, but the energy softens, the mind becomes more organized, and the body begins to respond with more tranquility. Louise Hay taught that thoughts are like seeds, and that what you cultivate inside flourishes outside. That's why to raise your vibration you don't need a grand ritual. You need consistency, consciousness, and small daily acts of self-love. Choose kind words. Feed yourself with respect. Say thank you for what you already have. Stop for a few minutes each day just to breathe and remember who you are. Because when you choose to vibrate high, life also begins to elevate itself. Elevating your vibration is an act of presence, but sustaining it is a commitment to yourself. Because it's not enough to have a good moment. The truly transformative thing is to create an inner space where you can take refuge, even when everything outside seems to be shaking. Sustaining a high vibration doesn't mean avoiding pain, but taking care of how you go through it. It's about choosing how you react when things don't go as expected. It's about observing your mind when it starts to criticize or compare. It's about redirecting your energy every time a complaint, a judgment, or discouragement appears. And this starts with the small things. A person who feels stuck can begin by simply tidying their space, cleaning their house with intention, and putting on music that lifts their spirits while they cook. These are simple actions, but behind them is a powerful message. You deserve to feel good. You deserve to live in an environment that inspires you. You deserve to take care of yourself. Louise spoke a lot about the power of our environment and our words. She said that every choice, no matter how small it seems, is a declaration about how you treat yourself. And when you choose with love, your vibration is sustained more easily, because raising your energy isn't about waiting to feel better to act. It's about acting with love to start feeling better. The words we use have a direct effect on our body. This isn't just a spiritual idea. Science has demonstrated it. In a study conducted in the United States, a group of people was invited to look at a series of negative words on a screen, words like depression, fear, loneliness, and death. Then, a blood sample was taken to be analyzed with a specialized technique called radioimmunoassay. The result? The level of cortisol, the stress hormone, skyrocketed. Just by reading those words, their bodies reacted as if they were in a real dangerous situation. Afterward, the experiment was repeated, but this time with positive words like joy, hope, love, and dawn. And the result was the opposite. Cortisol levels dropped dramatically, and the body responded with more calm, more balance, and more well-being. This demonstrates something fundamental. Words not only have emotional power, they also have biological power. Every phrase we say to ourselves, whether in silence or out loud, is sending a signal to our cells, and over time those signals become states of health or disease. Louise Hay said it clearly. Every word I utter is an affirmation, and every affirmation creates my reality. Therefore, taking care of your inner language is not superficial. It is a real way of taking care of your body, protecting your mind, and healing your soul. Changing that internal dialogue is often the first step toward a lighter, more loving, and healthier life. That's why starting to talk to yourself with love can change everything. It's not necessary to repeat complex phrases or do it for hours. Sometimes just a single affirmation said with intention can completely transform your emotional and physical state in the moment. Phrases like, "I'm doing the best I can, and that's enough. Today I choose to treat myself with respect and patience. Even if I don't feel well, I allow myself to rest without guilt. I trust that my body knows how to heal, and I am worthy of love. Even on my most difficult days," are instructions that the brain receives as new pathways. Over time, these new pathways strengthen the nervous system, decrease stress, and help build a stronger, more loving, and truer internal relationship. Louise Hay repeated that talking to yourself with kindness is as important as eating well or breathing, because the body listens to every word, and when the words are soft, firm, and full of love, the body begins to respond with relief, with energy, and with balance. This is how true healing begins, not from a place of demand, but from a place of tenderness. Many times, without realizing it, we fall into the trap of believing that we must be okay all the time, that if we are not vibrating high, we are failing. If we feel fear, or sadness, or tiredness, we believe we are doing something wrong. But that is not love. It is disguised demand. And constant demand wears you down, breaks you, and turns you off. Your body does not need you to force it to be okay. It needs you to listen to it. Your mind does not need you to silence it with empty phrases. It needs you to understand it. Your soul does not need you to rush it to heal. It needs your presence when it feels broken. Compassion is about allowing ourselves to be human. It's about saying to ourselves, it's okay not to be able to handle everything. It's okay if today I need to cry, stop, or just breathe a little more slowly. Think of someone suffering from anxiety. Instead of pressuring themselves with phrases like, I have to be okay, I shouldn't feel this way, they can begin to talk to themselves softly, as they would to someone they love deeply. I am doing the best I can. This moment will pass, just like all the others. I am not broken. I am just processing. Louise Hay taught that every word can be a bridge toward healing or a barrier that sinks us deeper, and that self-love is not about saying I love myself when everything is going well, but about holding ourselves with tenderness when everything is falling apart. Compassion does not eliminate pain, but it makes it livable. It does not erase fear, but it calms it. And it doesn't change what we are going through, but it transforms how we go through it. An affirmation to integrate might be, I accompany myself with love, even when I am not at my best. Today I don't demand from myself, I embrace myself. When compassion becomes a habit, something begins to change within. You no longer live from constant self-demand, or from the fear of failure, but from a more human, softer, and more real space. Many people punish themselves for not being well. They blame themselves for feeling sad, for having anxiety, for not being able to get up one day. And this guilt not only doesn't help, but also worsens the pain. Because to the emotional wound, we add the wound of judgment, of self-rejection, of I should be better. But deep healing does not happen in punishment. It happens in acceptance. In that moment when someone finally stops fighting with themselves and allows themselves to rest, allows themselves not to perform, and allows themselves not to know, that is the medicine that heals the most. Permission. Permission to fall and get back up. Permission to feel without explanations. Permission to be imperfect, changeable, human. This compassion not only calms the mind, it has a direct effect on the body. When we stop yelling at ourselves inside, the nervous system regulates itself. Our breathing becomes deeper, and our muscles relax. It's as if the body, finally feeling safe, also begins to release the pain it has been accumulating for years. Louise used to say that every time we talk to ourselves with love, the body listens. That true transformation happens when we stop treating ourselves as enemies and begin to accompany ourselves as allies. That's why on good days, but especially on difficult days, the question shouldn't be, how do I get out of this quickly? But rather, how can I accompany myself with more love in what I am feeling right now? That is where true healing begins, not when everything is resolved, but when we stop abandoning ourselves in the middle of the process. And perhaps there is no moment in which we need more compassion than when we face death, our own or that of someone we love. Because no matter how prepared we think we are, that instant always confronts us with what is essential. It reminds us that life is fragile, that nothing is guaranteed, and that love is the only thing that truly matters. Often the deepest pain comes not just from the absence of someone, but from what was not said, what was postponed, what we wanted but didn't allow ourselves to have. That is why talking about death is not dark. It is necessary not to obsess over the end, but to awaken to life before it passes by, unlived. Accepting that we are going to die does not mean giving up. It means appreciating more deeply that we are still here. It means understanding that if we are one day going to close our eyes for the last time, then every look today should be more conscious, every word more honest, every encounter more present. And it also means looking at that inevitable moment with less fear. Because if you have loved, if you have forgiven, if you have lived with authenticity, then leaving. Louise Hay spoke of death as a change of state, not as a loss. She said that the soul does not go out. It is only freed from the body to continue growing in another form, on another plane, and perhaps that is what can give us the most peace. Knowing that the love we gave doesn't die, that the energy we were doesn't get lost, and that the essence we left in those we touched with our hearts lives on long after we are gone. And that is why it is so important to maintain a high vibration, not as a spiritual obligation, but as a conscious choice in the face of the life that still inhabits us. Because when you understand that this passage through the earth is temporary, it becomes urgent to live from a different place, from gratitude, not from complaint, from love, not from fear, and from presence, not from oblivion. A high vibration does not mean being smiling all the time. It means living with openness, with intention, and with an ignited heart. It means knowing that every day is a gift, and that every thought, every emotion, and every word is a seed that is planted in the body, in the soul, and also in others. Those who keep their energy in tune with love do not fear death as much because they feel they are honoring life. They do not leave unresolved issues or unsaid words, and when the time comes to leave, they do so in peace, knowing that they didn't hold anything back. Louise Hay said that raising your vibration is like lighting a light that not only illuminates you but also those around you. And when you live this way, it doesn't matter how long you have. What's important is that you have lived with truth. Life is not made to be perfect. It is made to be lived with consciousness. And when that consciousness awakens, everything changes. Fear calms down, anxiety softens, and priorities are reordered. You begin to value what you once took for granted, and you learn to take care of what really matters. We didn't come to this life to fulfill external expectations or to maintain an impeccable image. We came to love, to grow, to heal, and to leave a mark. And for that, you don't need strength, you need love. Love for yourself, love for the present, and love for every part of the process, even the most difficult ones. Therefore, taking care of the energy we inhabit every day is not superficial. It is an act of respect for the life that has been given to us. Talking to yourself with compassion, sustaining yourself on gray days, and being grateful for what is already there, that is also healing, that is also vibrating high. And when the time comes to leave, because it will come for everyone, may it find us in peace, knowing that we loved, that we tried, and that we didn't hold back the most important things: our presence, our tenderness, and the power of having been truly alive. I thought a lot about making this video, not because it's an easy topic, but precisely because it's necessary. Because sometimes we forget that life and death are not separate, they walk together all the time. And realizing this is not sad, it is an act of awakening. Perhaps we needed to remember that there is no time to waste, that there are no loving words we should continue to hold back, and that no day deserves to be lived on autopilot, as if life were something that begins tomorrow. This is the moment, this is the body, and this is the opportunity. Living with more love, with more presence, and with more intention does not require big changes. It requires consciousness. And if this message leaves you with anything, hopefully it's this: that we are alive, and that is already a miracle. And that while we are here, the greatest gift we can give ourselves is to truly live. How do you feel after listening to this message? Do you think this video can help you feel more at peace, with more energy, and more conscious of how valuable it is to be alive? I would love to read your thoughts in the comments. Tell me what simple things you are going to start valuing more. Thank you for being here. Truly, this channel is a judgment-free space created to accompany us in the process of personal and emotional growth. Here, there are many of us looking for the same thing: to live better, with more love, more awareness, and more connection. And little by little, we are forming a solid, sincere community that supports each other from the heart. If this video touched your soul, or you think it can help someone else, please share it. Maybe it's just what that person needs to hear. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I invite you to do so. Give it a like, activate the bell, and join us on this path of transformation. I want to end with a powerful phrase from Louise that summarizes everything we have shared today. Every thought we have is creating our future.